Hi everyone, hope you're doing really well. Welcome to today's episode where we're going to be looking at the dangers associated with the recommendations. Now it's true, isn't it? We live in a world and society where recommendations are very prevalent. In fact, almost every single product and service can be reviewed and has been reviewed at some point in the past. So that raises the question, right? Why is it sometimes we seek recommendations or highest reviewed products or services, and when we employ the help of that service or we purchase that product, sometimes we're left feeling rather wanting because there's a gap between expectation and reality? Like, how does that work? Now, it's likely that if you're going to be in property at any point, you're going to have to ask or find yourself in a position of asking for recommendations, or alternatively, people asking you for recommendations. Let's just say you're right at the beginning of your property investing journey and you need a whole group of people that you'd like to work with, from solicitors to gardeners to carpenters to surveyors and so many more people. And what is very common and very understandable and a very good practice is to make recommendations or to ask and seek recommendations. So you might say to someone, well, do you happen to have a carpenter that you can recommend? And later on, once you've done a refurb or two, very quickly you'll most likely find people coming up to you, your friends and your family and perhaps your work colleagues, and saying, do you happen to know a good solicitor, mortgage broker, carpenter, plumber, electrician? And people are now going to start asking you for recommendations. So what's the danger and what should we be mindful of? Well, let's just start with that second scenario first of all. Let's just say you've done a few refurbs and someone comes up to you and says, do you happen to have a carpenter that you can recommend? Now what you do is you say, yeah, sure, here's the carpenter's details, you hand it over to your friend and they work together on a project. Let's just say those two people work brilliantly, just as you would expect them to. All you hear from both of them is, thanks so much for the recommendation, that was brilliant, if you've got any more like that, I'd love to work with them. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two may look like this. Let's just say the carpenter doesn't quite operate and behave just as you might expect them to with your work. All you hear from your friend is, well, why would you recommend someone like that? Scenario number three might be like this. Let's say your carpenter works brilliantly and your friend doesn't behave quite as you would normally expect, and all you hear from your carpenter is, well, why would you recommend a friend like that? Or of course, scenario number four, the worst of the worst, both don't behave as you would expect, and all you hear from both of them is, well, thanks a bunch, we really appreciate that recommendation. And you can see that in those four scenarios, only one of them turns out favourably for you. So there's a danger in making recommendations. If you're going to make a recommendation, expect you may hear 3/4 of negativity because things will not always work out as well for other people as they have done for you. So am I saying don't make a recommendation? No, of course not. I'm saying happy to make recommendations, but I'd always make a caveat and say something like this. Look, I'm really happy to make a recommendation. I've got a great carpenter that I've worked with for a number of years, but can I just also say right now, I cannot guarantee their work, their service, they may not always turn up on time. I can't make any form of guarantee about how they're going to operate, even though they've always worked brilliant for us. Do you understand that? Cool? You still want the number? Yep. Here it is. Then if things do go badly and they come to you and say, why would you recommend someone like that? You can say, hang on a second, I did try to say I can't make any promises that they were going to work in a certain way. So you've damaged limitation for what may happen in the future. If it works out brilliantly, they'll forget you had that conversation anyway and they'll thank you for a great recommendation. So that's how to deal with if people ask you for a recommendation. Yes, make it, but make a disclaimer that you can't guarantee it. What about the other way around? Let's say you're right at the beginning of your property investing journey and you're looking for recommendations, and someone turns around and says to you, yeah, I happen to know a really great carpenter. Thanks so much. Now, before you dive into your job, do more due diligence. Make sure you are not just relying on a recommendation on its own. You make sure you go around and see their work. Make sure you ask for a number of people for testimonials. Check them out online, check them out on social media. You do all the normal things. Make sure that they are as likely as possible going to do as good a job as you've been told. So yes, are recommendations bad? No, they're part of the 21st century. However, be mindful. If you are going to recommend someone, make a disclaimer, and if you have someone recommend to you, make sure you only use it as part of your due diligence, not just on its own. Hope you found that interesting and helpful. My name is Josh Harrison. Thank you ever so much for your support. As always, we really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.